Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So I just wanted to make this video here about some changes that have been happening recently. So a Black female Democrat calls for change in the party. And I wanted to add some other people that are also reflective of women of color, Black females who are now elective officials in office. And so this article just came in not very long ago. As a matter of fact, here it's in politics, which I'm usually well aware of and well informed, well read on. So Black female Democrats call for change in party. So this is out of AP, which is Associated Press. And so September 5th, 2018, this is a file photo of Anaya, or Aya. Okay, let me pronounce it. I believe her last name is Presley, but her first name is Ayanna. Okay. She speaks at a Massachusetts Democratic Party unity event in Boston. And so at right is Jay Gonzalez. He's the winner of the Massachusetts Democratic gubernatorial primary. And at the annual meeting of the Congressional Black Caucus, September 14th, Black female candidates who prevailed in the primaries over established incumbents said it's time for a conversation about how the party is structured. Democrat being the majority. And so we have to have a conversation about the guts and the soul of this party. So in Washington, Associated Press, insurgent Democratic women running for Congress are pushing the party to rethink its approach to politics if they would take control of the Capitol Hill in the fall. And so this is the plan that they're working on right now. What they're trying to do is make a shift from the Republicans controlling Capitol Hill moreover than Democrats. And so at the annual meeting of the Congressional Black Caucus on Friday, female candidates who prevailed in the primaries over established incumbents said that it's time for a conversation about how the party is structured. So they expressed frustration at the party that is tilted against rising politicians, especially those of color, and argued that if Democrats flip the House, is what they're trying to do in November, it would be the result of an organization and a turnout amount Black voters, particularly women. So if that happens, the candidate said that gratitude won't be enough, and they want a seat at the leadership table and a role in re-examining how the party works. So it is not enough to just talk about the blue wave that is supposedly coming, but the Democrats being the majority instead of just the minority speakers, or the minority in terms of taking over the most of the political issues that are at hand, said Anaya, or I always like to say Anaya, so it's Ayanna, or Ayanna Presley, the Boston City Councilwoman now poised to become Massachusetts' first Black Congresswoman. What matters is who those Democrats are. And so I've said before in previous videos, you can be a liberal, you can be a Democrat, but you can be leaning somewhat far right instead of left. Or you could be middle of the road. So there's different types of people in these political parties, in these categories. Politicians, and so sometimes they can be middle of the road, they can be far right, or they can be far left, or they can be in between, or they could be, how would you say, impartial to some different ideas in terms of politics. So we have to have a conversation about the guts and the soul of this party. So Presley won her primary last month by 18 points after challenging a 10-term incumbent initially endorsed by the Congressional Black Caucus. Without a Republican challenger in the general election, she appears to have the clear path to Congress. And so her comments foreshadow the challenges that lie ahead if the Democrats regain control of the House in November. And so this is what they've been talking about more recently. And so the party will have to reconcile the anti-establishment energy and the diverse set of freshmen with a leadership structure dominated by lawmakers who are mostly white and held the offices for many decades. And so Connecticut House Democrat nominee Jahana Hayes also challenged the state political veteran to win her shot at becoming the state's first Black congresswoman. So the former national teacher of the year told the CBC audience that she lacked support during her primary. So everyone said, "You don't have the network. No one knows you. And I have never run for a political office, so I had no money," Hayes said. "So I'm doing this for the people who don't have a voice." And so that is a strong message that she's sending to people like just in the smaller communities. So it's not what they say, it's more what they do. And so that's the big issue here. So we have to just basically wait and see. So since her recent win, 62% of the vote, Hayes said, "It's popular to support me now." And so after a Black woman showed up and showed out in this primary season, they are taking their rightful place, said Rep. Terry Sewell, who is in the 2010 and was elected Alabama's first Black congresswoman. And so she's taking her place. And Selma Democrat was instrumental in Senate Doug Jones' special election last winter, when he became the first Democrat to represent Alabama in the Senate in 25 years. So that's how long it's been in terms of somebody of color representing these different seats. So we have been the backbone of the Democratic Party for a long time, and we're finally getting our due, says Sewell. So there were a whole bunch of people he doesn't even know that did a whole bunch of work to help him get there. So those people were Black women who often work with little or no financial support for infrastructure, she said. And so we know Black women usually can make a way out of no way, sometimes with very little of nothing. And so we're able to do that. And so we've kind of been brought up in that, especially those that know where I'm coming from, the ones that do. So we need to activate the people on the ground who have been doing this work for free, Sewell said. So they need resources. It's not just about the seat at the table. Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter Fund, agreed, noting that the grassroots groups like hers have long filled the gap when the official party apparatus was absent. So it's our table, said Brown, who galvanized Black women to support Jones. So we have to have some really deep conversations about the landscapes of this change that has changed. Okay, so that also includes addressing priorities within the party, Presley said. So I rejected the notion that this is about working class white folks and everyone else. So Presley told the cheering crowd, I reject the notion that we're going to have an actual debate about it if we are the party of jobs and economy and criminal justice reform. I'm not choosing. So some CBC meeting attendees noted that the party has made efforts this cycle. This summer, the Democratic National Committee launched an initiative aimed at Black women in particular. So after voting overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton in 2016, many Black women said that they felt ignored or taken for granted by the party. Instead of being looked to as saviors, Black women are calling for roles as decision and agenda makers. And so this week's gathering of Black lawmakers also spotlighted Black women's political influence and impact in this American country, of course. Much of the CBC agenda has focused squarely on Black women and their issues, the Black women as panelists, honorees, and framers of much of this discussion. So they're not leading this nation in healthcare or pay, but when it comes to the democracy of the nation, Black women are leading the way, and we need to talk or be talking about those issues and more. So in New Jersey Senate, Cory Booker, who along with California Senate Kamala Harris and the Senate's only Black woman, serve as the convention's honorary co-chair. So New York Congresswoman Yvette Clarke echoed his sentiments Thursday evening at an award event honoring CBC women. So, okay, so the Sisters on the Hill are definitely running things. said Clark, one of the 21 women in the caucus, in the Black caucus. So I think about the blue wave hitting and seeing Congresswoman Maxine Waters bring down the gavel and chair of the Financial Services. I get excited. And so said Clark, currently the ranking Democrat on the committee. And when I think about Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson bringing down the gavel as the chair and committee on the science and technology, I get excited. So Wakina Clanton, the DNC's African American Outreach Chair, encouraged the pressure to change the party dynamic toward Black women candidates and voters. So this is what they're going to be focused on this election, primarily because they want to try to see if they can do some things to make some changes in specifics to not only just the women of color, but in some of the issues or social issues that we've, people often talk about. So we need you all support, whether that comes from in the form of criticism or whatever, said Clanton. So one of the reasons I came to the party was because that was valid. And so I believe that I could only make the change that I needed by being there. And so all these people who haven't for a long time felt like this was the party or their party feel like this is their party now because I'm there and I'm doing the work every single day. And so that's pretty much the article. It's very short. So I wanted to switch over. I'm going to go back up to where this woman is who just was elected not very long ago. And I had trouble saying her name because I keep wanting to say Anna, but it's Ayanna. And I still could be saying Ayanna Pressley. And so she speaks at the Massachusetts Democratic Party Unity event in Boston. And so she is a voice for what is to happen in November and even now. So I wanted to switch over from this article really quick and go to something really quick. So this right here is women of color that are elected in elective office in 2018 as of now. Congress, statewide, state legislator, mayors, and what have you. And so this is information, anybody can access it. This is in Rutgers, and it says Eagleton Institute of Politics. And so this shows you Asian Pacific Islander, multiracial, Latina, and Black. And it gives you Caribbean American, Asian Pacific Islander, and then so it has a list here. And so you can see pretty much the names. Some of them are very familiar, so some we already know, and some that are new that have just been elected fairly recently. And so these are the names right here. And so as in Black, you see there's about 18 elected officials in terms of females. And so, and then all others, women of color that are either Latina, Asian Pacific Islander, Caribbean, are also here. And so you have the U.S. House delegates, you have the U.S. House, and then you have the U.S. Senate and statewide electives, executives. And so there are plenty of women that are making waves and that are trying to make some changes. But, we see this, it's about more of not what we see, but what is being done about certain situations. So I would say that since these things are developing in my book, I would say that any issues that arise in these communities, there should be a way of contacting these individuals and bringing about some of the social issues that happen in some of the communities. And it starts from reaching people like in your city, your particular city. And so you would look probably in, who's the mayor of the city, who's, in office in your particular city that deals with some of the social issues that go on. And so those are the people you would write letters to, you would contact, you would reach, like the mayor and some of the elected officials that some of the council people who work for your particular district that can deal with some of the social problems that go on or some of the social ills that go on inside your community. A lot of people, they say a lot of things and they're disappointed and they feel like these people really don't help the communities. They're just there for show. And some of that may be true for some people, but that's not everyone. A lot of times too, voices are not heard because voices are not are reaching out and saying anything. They basically stay silent, and the only thing that they do is just probably vote, and then some won't even vote. So a lot of times, a lot of people have a lot of input about different issues, but you never see anybody actually contacting any of these elected officials to bring about some of the much needed um, conversation that needs to be established in terms of to bring about change in some of the smaller communities. Sometimes some of the small issues too can be resolved if you just contact the city in your community. Sometimes it takes time because sometimes the government and different, you know, infra, social structures in these political arenas are slow about doing things, and so that's where some of the trust sometimes can be broken down, like where such as getting a pothole filled in your on your street, and sometimes you'll see that same pothole, it'll be there for months until they get most of the people to start complaining if you got a couple of pop tires. So it's stuff like that. That's small, but stuff that's bigger, you know, like things that are like crime, you know, some of the crime statistics, some of the things that are happening, some of the more, you know, bigger issues, even dealing with race issues. That, you know, if there's an unfairness, like there was one place I was reading about, and I had did a video previous where they were closing voting polls, and those were the closest voting polls in the area. Most of the people that lived in the area were African American, and so a lot of people rallied together, and they've been petitioning that they don't close those voting polls because they feel like the reason why they're closing them is because they want to make it harder for the Black people to vote, and that they would have to go a longer distance. And these are neighborhoods where people have a lot of poverty, and so they speculate that their reason for closing these places is unjust. Their reason for closing is because it's not set up properly, especially for people with disabilities, is what they're claiming. But a lot of people feel that that's just a false excuse. These things, if they were so serious about and dire need of fixing, they should have did it way before the election time. They waited until close to election time to feel as though the need that they had to close it down, so they feel like there's some kind of conspiracy going on. So I believe that might be in Atlanta or one of those places like that. I could be wrong. It started with A, I think. Maybe, I don't know if it was Georgia, Atlanta, Alabama, one of those places where they feel that they kind of have a history of doing this. And so that's the other thing that goes along with it. So these elected officials are important to some degree. So a lot of times, some people do things like they actually put their money where their mouth is, or they actually carry out what they say they're going to do, and then others just kind of are there for show. They just talk and they don't really say anything, and they don't make much of an impact, or at least not enough for people to feel like they actually have done something. And so anyway, you can also see that most of these people here, a few are Republican, but for the most part, many of these people are Democrat. Or they're in the Democratic arena. And so there has been some people who have left Democratic, but they are still Democratic leaning. They may be in other parties, but they still are Democratic leaning. So make no mistake about that. Also, you have people who are oppositional. So we have some people that they do a lot of talking, and you don't really see a lot of change. One in particular, she is African American, it's Candace Owens, and so right now there's a lot of people that are not really happy with her, and then there are some that are, because they like hearing Black people talk bad about other Black people. You know, if they can't have a white person do it because the white person is afraid that they're going to be called a racist, it's better to have a Black person to actually belittle their own culture and use politics to do it. And so they'll give them a platform, they'll put them on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and all of the other channels so that they can say a lot of things that make Black people feel as though that they have to be subjected to, chastisement from other Black people who are more far right leaning in terms of Republican Party and views. And so they don't bring that out as the factor in it all. It's mainly a lot of these people, they get paid to say these things and do these things. But then when all the balloons and the bubbles are popped, then these people tend to fade off in the wind. And so, well, with that being said, I'm going to let this video go. This was hopefully an eye-opener. I just wanted to leave you with this, that there are some people that do want to make change at some point. And so this is the kind of thing that you'll see that is happening more recently, where you have a group of people who are trying to do this thing called the blue wave, which means that more Democrats or more people that are far are more left-leaning, left-wing people who are trying to see if that they can have more voices that are unheard come out in more numbers, and actually, deal with some of the political issues that especially Black women, who our voices are rarely heard, and if it is, it's usually the same people, and you don't really see much change happen, or very little, or their efforts are thwarted because, like Maxine Waters, although some people are not very big, there's some that are okay with her and others that aren't fans of her for whatever their reasons, maybe their political reasons, but all in all, she is a Black woman and representative of the communities that are in California. And so, more recently they had what was called the Oath Keepers that came out, and they tried to do something where they tried to shut down a protest or a forum that I think she was going to do a speaking to try to rally people together for some of the social issues that were going on. And so they did have some people there that were there to support her. And so a lot of those people did get run out of that area. And so she's been in office for quite some time. And so now we have new women like this woman right here, and some others that are listed here in this list that I have here that I showed you. So if you're looking for it, or whether you are or not, this is 2018, this is to the year and forward. And so this will give you a number of the different elected officials, people that are dealing with some of, or that you can, say that are dealing with some of the social issues that happen in communities here. And so anyway, I'm trying to look at the bottom here because I didn't go down to the bottom, but there's also where you can see a graph of the numbers of people who are involved in these offices. And so it goes down the line here. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to let this video go and have a wonderful weekend. And, it's about change, then it's more about what you do rather than what you say. I know a lot of YouTubers are making videos and they're talking about all these issues, but it's one thing to talk about it, and it's another thing to actually make some change and do something about it. And some people, they're not able to do a whole lot. And so maybe the only thing that you do have is your voice and the vote, and contacting the elected officials in your community or your neighboring city. And so, two, if you do make informative videos, you would think that people would make more sense of it rather than just siphon money out of people. It seems counterproductive. Of course, if you state your case and you say that I'm just trying to bring some good content to you and entertainment, be real with it, but don't try to make it seem as though you're going to try to do this big project and you're going to make about a big change. You're just basically steering people mentally, and basically at the end when they're done, there is no change. And so not a lot of people can do a whole lot, especially it takes money to actually do something, and we live in a country that is about capitalism. So that's just the way it is. So anyway, with that being said, enjoy your weekend and take care. Thank you for listening.